Welcome back to Combat Mission Shock Force, where we're continuing our play around with the editor. So in the last episode, we made all this. So this is our terrain that we're going to have our scenario on. What we need to do next is plug in the forces that we want to use. So if we come out of this by pressing escape, go to units, and this is just like the quick battle force selection thing. So last time we put in a JTAC team, like an FO section, to check basic line of sight and stuff. So we can get rid of them because we don't need them. And because this is a showcase for the US Rifle Platoon, we should probably put one of those in. If we get rid of all the other little bits. Boom, there we go. So that's all our constituent bits. And we don't want the player to... This is a showcase, so we don't want the player to be kind of massively over the top here. But soft factors wise, we want them to get the job done but not be, overpowered, and definitely not be a bunch of pushovers who just fail. So veterans should be okay for the purposes of this. If we go to deploy over here, we can stick them in. Cool. So it's a little bit like the when you make a force in a quick battle, and the units sometimes they can get kind of shuffled around all over the place. Obviously, we don't want to leave them where they are. The plan here is to have them start off in this kind of area here. We don't want to go too far right because we've got this ditch, the embankment for the road here. Stops being an embankment. It kind of declines down to ground level, and if we have them starting over here, they're going to be exposed to the bad guys, the red force that we're going to put in the distance. So we want them all to be starting off behind these behind the berms. So we'll start off with the HQ. We'll have a little group with all of the... Make sure they're facing the right way. Little group with all of the small teams. Make sure they're not deployed in the middle. Then we'll have, third squad on the right. Second squad... Oh, no, this is first squad. First squad on the left in that field, and then second squad in the middle. They go behind the compound. Let's just dive down here and have a check. Yeah, that's cool. They should be okay though. They can... Looks like they can be seen from the upper floor of that building there. The range is 500 meters, so it's not that. Not really effective small arms range, but yeah, we'll have to be careful about what we put in there and how that's going to interact, because we also want to showcase the fact that the Americans get night vision, so it is going to be a night scenario. That it should be okay. The other thing to remember here is that the camera position, the final camera position when you are deploying the troops like this, is where the camera will start in the game. So, obviously it's going to confuse players if you start the scenario and the camera is facing this way. So obviously we just want to make it intuitively, behind the main bulk of the force, something like that. That's fine. So go escape again, back we go. Now there aren't any. As it is, the player can't mess around with that because there isn't a deployment zone there. We could, if we wanted to, we could leave them like that and give the player no options, but that's kind of boring. So if we go to map and we click on the arrow to get to the other options, setup zones, and then we have blue 1, 2, 3 and red 1, 2, 3. The different setup zones are so you can have split forces. Each unit can only be deployed in the deployment zone it starts in, so you can't move from blue 1 to blue 2. That lets you have units spread out across the map that you might not particularly want to have integrating. So, how far forward do we want things? Well, let's say up to the level of the road, like that. That ditch, let's have that ditch as our forward kind of line there. And I don't want to include the compound, because that's gonna let the player get stuck in straight away at the longer ranges. But the rest of it, I feel like that should be fair game. And obviously, if we pop back to the units and deploy, first of all, the camera is where we left it, which is good. Second, we can see the deployment zone, and it shouldn't be. Yeah, it's not too bad. We can, have some troops in the ditch up front, which we may or may not, or the player may or may not want to do, but they have to make a conscious, because that's not where we're having the units start. The units will still start here even though they're in the deployment zone. So the player, when they come in and they read the briefing and they see the objectives and they look at this for the first time and they make their plan, they're going to have to make a conscious decision to say, okay, I want to have third squad over here covering this orchard. So and that's a cost benefit, right? Because you might decide that you want some troops here. That means they're going to be starting off somewhat exposed, but that might be worth it compared to running through the wheat field to get there later. So already we're setting it up so the player has decisions to make. So that's all fine. Come out of that. Let's think about the red side then. So I think we were going to go with uncons for this because they're generally a bit crap. Essentially all the red team is here for, this is a showcase, it's not supposed to be a challenging scenario. They're mostly just there to get shot at by the blue player. So some uncons should be fine. And we basically need 2 uncon forces. We need a force at the start, which is going to attack the blue player's position. So they're basically going to run through the orchard and get shot. That's the kind of outline for the scenario. Then we need another group further back at the enemy compound to dig in and for the player to attack later. So let's go around to the combatants because they're nice and simple. If we have a large group, that can be at the compound. And we have a medium group, and that can be in the orchard and in the drainage ditch. Now, soft factors wise, they're all poorly supplied, they're not very well trained, but they're crazy, and they don't have a massive amount of ammunition. That's fine. Headquarters, yeah, well, because this is an uncon unit, we can mess around with all these and have they're very customizable. We can change the size of all the units. That's a lot of snipers. Let's maybe make these guys a little bit smaller. Yeah, that's cool. And then these guys, well, we want these guys to run forward, don't we? So let's give them an LMG. We'll have an RPG team at the back. That can stay in the drainage ditch. Give him more. Yeah, that looks like it should be okay. And of course, we also want, tagging along with the guys at the HQ, we want a tank. Now we can't, the uncons don't have any tanks. This is for the javelin to shoot at. So we can grab one and attach it to them by just changing which faction. You can't do this in the quick battles. So what's the worst tank we've got? T-55. the worst mobile tank we've got, and we really want to make that a conscript and not give it too much ammunition because we don't want it to just like completely wail on the player. Let's make the tank commander a potato as well. Okay, cool. So if we deploy red. Something I forgot to do, which we could do, let's hop back, is if we go in, now the intent is for this scenario to get played by a human against the AI. So having a deployment zone isn't a massive deal for that, but we can build in some head-to-head capability for the masochists out there. So you can play as red if you want. Maybe when we get to the AI plans. And if we actually put in a red deployment zone, that's going to be a really useful marker for us when we're thinking about when we're actually deploying things. Obviously, this is a small, very simple map, but if we're making something bigger or something that was more complex, having this is where the red team should be, no further than this line, having that visually marked on via the deployment zone is quite useful. Missed him, didn't we? So we've got the large combatant group. They have the T-55, and we have the small one. They're going to live over here. And what they will be getting an AI plan later, but what I want to do to begin with is just have them in the positions I kind of want them to fight from. And we'll hop in and we'll do a little play test. So that we basically just so we can check off that it's all working properly. So let's put those guys there with the RPG, and we'll put you guys over here. So we have a few guys in the compound, including the commander. We have some guys who have an SPD sniper team up at the top there. And we have these guys, the biggest group with the nastiest weapon covering the most likely approach over here, and over here these guys are covering the open ground there. And they're relatively safe, right, because they've got the embankment to hide behind. These guys in the compound are pretty safe as well. So the blue player is going to have to work a little bit at least to root them out. The T-55, we want that over here. On the road, that makes sense. Let's start with him opened up. I think the AI plan will override that, but whatever. And then for these guys, the auctioned guys, we'll take the RPG team and put them in the ditch, like that. They're going to be the little fire support, and then the other teams, they're going to be the ones attacking through the auction. Like that. Cool. So, that's that done. Let's get the camera in a sensible place so that when we come back to it later we can see everything. And yeah, obviously this is a night scenario, so if we want to have a decent playtest, we need to set it to night. So if we go into the data, and up here we can check the time of day. So if we go to 00 hours, let's turn civilian density off. That is only a factor in Shock Force. It influences how hard it is to spot the uncons, basically. So we don't want any civilians around to make this some kind of counterinsurgency scenario. We don't want that complication. It's not very intuitive because you can't see the civilians. It's just the setting. We just want to shoot at some bad guys. So with that, to test it, we need to save it to the scenarios folder. That way we can go back to we exit the editor, go back to the main menu, go into the battle section, find it, and then just play it like you would any other scenario. So we need to save it. I've saved it here previously, just in the root game files folder. So this time we want to go into scenarios. This is a list of all the scenarios, and if we go into and just call it editor map test. Now we won't. We're going to put 2 zeros in front and call it editor map test then. Because there's quite a long list of stuff, we put zeros at the front, it's going to be at the start. Boom, so we saved it, exit, back to the menu, battle, alphabetical ascending, editor map test, we just made it. All these details here are, I guess some of them are okay, but the details for the battle like this, like you'd be able to tell what you're looking at, we haven't filled that in yet. That's not a problem because we're just testing it. And yeah, if we play it in hot seat mode, we can control both sides. And we can use that to substitute for an AI plan because I haven't made one yet. So, and that's with the artificial brightness on. There we go. Put the night vision on. This is Rambler's night vision mod, which is great. Yeah, that looks pretty cool, doesn't it? So, how are we going to approach this scenario? Well, let's get the MG teams into the buildings. And we'll stagger that team a little bit. That should be cool. Let's get the Javelin team. They can wait a couple of seconds and then follow up these guys so we don't have everybody rushing in at the same time. The HQ squad can hang around behind the compound. Second squad can hang back a little bit. They're going to be our reserve. First squad can pop into the ditch. Did I put a ditch here? No, I didn't. Oh well, they can just be on the edge of the... let's split the teams. They can be on the edge there. Where they can, they can kind of see a little bit across the way. That's cool. And then third squad, let's pop them in the orchard. So if we split them up like that, so they're not all going to get killed by the same RPG. Cool. So we're not going to do anything else with blue this turn because we want to see how this initial engagement is going to pan out, basically. We hop in as red. All these units, yeah, see, he closed down again. They can all stay where they are. And these guys, we want them to attack this way. So let's just... do that. That's not really what a AI plan attack would look like, but it'll do. And we're just going to send them into the ditch up there, which again, when you were making AI plans, we're going to be painting areas onto the map. So syncing the AI plans off of terrain features like this ditch is going to be quite important because it makes it a lot easier to judge where things are. We don't need that. Let's see how this pans out. Are all these guys about to get murderized? Is the tank going to explode? Yep, there we go. So yeah, guess what guys? American rifle infantry have a surprising amount of firepower. We can just skip through that. Yeah, it looks like those guys are going to get it relatively pasted. These guys are at the back. They can't see anything. They have some contacts, but it's a little bit too far to see. and the tank can't see anything, which is kind of what we want. Let's see what's it like for the blue player. Yeah, straight away, look, these guys are running at us through the field, and we're just going to pick them off from our ditch here. Yeah, that's cool. Cool, the javelin's not in position yet. Let's just keep the same orders and we'll fast forward. Yeah, those MGs are deploying, but it's actually these guys who can see them. And yep, boom, there goes the... I have hit text turned off. Right, so that's the javelin. So the javelin can see the tank. Big thumbs up. These guys can advance, but they're getting wiped out, which is what we want. These guys down here, yeah, they're somewhat in the fight. We can give them a target order with the AI plan, so they would put suppressing fire down on, say, the compound, the blue compound. That's cool. These guys can't see anything. But at the same time, blue can't see them either, right? So that's okay. They can fire out that far because they can see with the night vision. I just kind of want to test this first engagement, and this is pretty much. I've played a lot of combat mission, so I kind of had a good gut feeling for how this is going to work with the terrain and the forces and all that dynamic. Obviously, not everybody has played combat mission for 10 years, so sometimes it is really important to just mash things together on the map to see how things are going to pan out. So let's see what happens if we start shooting up the compound. These guys, yeah, so these guys can only see out to about 400 meters because they don't have night vision. These guys can't see because they're pinned. But they should, in theory, be able to shoot up the compound if we give them the order with the AI. So yeah, that's... You guys going to deploy that machine gun at some point. Deploy machine guns in buildings. It's just, yeah. So they can't see a target here, but we know they're there, and they are capable of suppressing. These guys are getting suppressed. They can't see where it's coming from, but if we zoom to the blue side... Well, that's just rifle fire, but yeah, there's some M240. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So we know all this is working. Don't need anything else in there. We can jump back to the scenario editor, and because the editor map file here is the same one as the one we put in scenarios, we just called it a different name. If we load that up, oh, because I didn't save it. I'm a genius. So we can work out of this one now if we like, because it's got all the stuff in. Smarter people than me will probably have a system for having different versions of scenarios when you're tweaking changes as you're going and things like that. You can be as complex and organized or as haphazard and simple as you like. So that's the forces keyed in. I think we can go ahead and fill some of these bits in. So this stuff at the start here is the kind of the details that get filled in on the battle screen that were empty, and we can quickly just pop these in. This is just so that the player knows what kind of battle they're getting into. So if we go US Rifle Platoon Showcase, and say US Rifle, a US Infantry Patrol runs into unconventional. I hope I spelt that right. You know when you're set slight, like an inch to the right, unconventional forces in the fields. Cool, that'll do. This is we could do an image. We'll do that later. And then the data, 30 minutes. That's okay for now. We could increase that. The time doesn't really matter. I mean, we could put it at the end, in the end phase, because that's the insurgency phase of the Shock Force 2 scenario, not the start. It doesn't make sense for them to be fighting insurgents on day 1 of the invasion, depending on how you view it. The time, that's fine. And the weather, clear, nice bright night so we can see far, that's fine. And warm, it's quite cool. And dry. Blue friendly and red friendly direction. This one is important because it determines where your artillery comes from. We might have some artillery. And sometimes, well, I'm 90% sure it involves the direction your troops will try to run away in. So we actually want blue's friendly direction to be south, and we want red's friendly direction to be north. Intel strength. This just determines how much pre-battle intelligence you get. So the little spots that you have at the start of the battle that help fill you in on what's going on. So, we could give the blue player a little bit there. Electronic warfare, not messing with that. The weather, cool and dry and clear with a gentle wind, that is absolutely fine for the purposes of our scenario. We don't want to complicate things. We just basically, the point of the scenario is to showcase. We're just here to shoot some uncons, essentially. That's fine. Those are good shooting conditions. I think that'll do for now. So we've done we've mashed the forces in that we want, and we've seen how they're going to interact at least at the start of the game, and that looks like it's working fine. As time goes on, and we play test it more, and we add the objectives in, and we start messing with the AI plan, we can alter that stuff. There's also this area here around the back of the red compound is kind of empty and boring. Might put some stuff in there, put some hills maybe, that might jazz things up a little bit. But we're well on the way to getting this sorted. The playtesting is absolutely critical. To have a vision of what you want the scenario to look like and play like, and then making sure that the reality of what you're making is tallying up to the expectations you're going in with is absolutely vital. Otherwise, you can make a perfectly good scenario by just making some terrain and whacking some forces on them. But, depending on how involved you want to get in the process, having a plan and a specific purpose to the scenario can make it easier, especially if it's the first time you're doing it. So, with that, we'll save that again. And yeah, that's it for this episode. Next time we'll have a look at objectives, I think, and mess around with the playtesting a bit more. So, I'll catch you in the next video.